truck batteries. So that's their comments. So that's not for me. That's nothing. Artie's been doing a little work today. But don't. Good evening. The Board of Commissioners is the governing body of Clatsop County.
Get it 9.
All county service districts for which this body so acts and is the Clatsop County Local Contract Review meeting is now meeting in regular session. Will you please join me for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have the roll call, please?
Here.
Commissioner Clement? Here.
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Looking for a motion to approve the agenda. I think Commissioner Sullivan, you have an item that you want to...
Oh, yes, thank you.
See, Thames, you...
I would like, I'm requesting that the Seaside Thames contract amendment be pulled off the consent calendar.
And move to business items or pulled off and tabled?
Move to business items.
Okay. Commissioner Sullivan would like to move item 6E off the consent calendar and put it as item 8B on the business agenda. If there is no objection from the board, seeing none, I'll allow that, and we'll move this item to the business agenda. And then I'll look for a motion to approve the amended consent calendar as presented.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion to second to approve the amended consent calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Chair, that's a motion to approve that agenda, not the consent. We're approving the entire agenda.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
So we're, yes, excuse me. I was looking for a motion to approve the amended agenda as presented. Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our first item tonight is a presentation on Clatsop County Domestic Violence Council. Welcome. How are you? Good evening. Good, good.
So I want to start off by thanking the Board of County Commissioners for allowing us to come here and give you an update, our yearly update on what the Domestic Violence Council is up to. My name is Benjamin Bradshaw. I'm a Victim Services Coordinator with the Clatsop County District Attorney's Office. As a victim advocate, I support and assist victims of crime and family members through the aftermath of a crime and as they move through the criminal justice system. I've also had the great honor of serving as the chair of Clatsop County Domestic Violence Council for the last 18 months, which is what brings me here today to provide the Board of County Commissioners with our yearly update on what the Domestic Violence Council is up to. So, as a reminder, the purpose of our yearly update is to report to the Board of County Commissioners on our continued transformation, as well to report to the Board of County Commissioners on our standing committees and our community outreach, as well as to report to you the status of our long-standing community outreach events. We are still a council in transformation. We recognize the necessity for having a population-specific population-specific representation on the council, so that underrepresented and vulnerable groups can be heard, and so system gaps can be identified and addressed. In the last year, we have been successful in recruiting leadership from our faith communities, as well as service providers who work with our homeless population. At the first meeting, I'm going to tell you a little story. At the first meeting that he attended, the director of the Astoria Warming Center raised a question, and I'm going to paraphrase when I say, he said something along the lines of, we have women that come and stay overnight at the Warming Center who are obviously victims of domestic violence. Often they stay at the Warming Center with their children. They are leery of reaching out to law enforcement because they fear they may lose their children or because possibly they're have active drug use issues. Are there resources available for them that do not involve police contact? This resulted in a connection being made between the harbor and the Astoria Warming Center, which resulted in an amazing collaboration. It resulted in the harbor will have an advocate that completes the Warming Center's volunteer orientation. As well, the harbor will have a dedicated advocate who is trained to work with our homeless population and provide them with 100% confidential victim advocacy services. So we have an organization where our homeless population can meet with a representative, and they don't have to disclose to law enforcement. It is separate from law enforcement. This coordination is helping victims emerge from the shadows and very well may save lives. In many ways, this is similar to the co-located advocate that works for the harbor, but is located in the DHS offices. Now, this is amazing work. And we're also going to talk about our subcommittees. Which subcommittee was in charge of working on this? And the fact is that none of our subcommittees were in charge of working on this. This is something that came up very organically through our Domestic Violence Council meeting. So we're going to talk a little bit about our subcommittees. We have 4 subcommittees set up within the Domestic Violence Council. The first is interagency coordination. The second is offender services. The third is prevention and community outreach. And the fourth is victim services and response. So I will say moving forward that there is absolutely room for growth within our subcommittees. I can say that the Domestic Violence Council, within the Domestic Violence Council, communication on policy and program oversight is consistent and it's constant. We look forward in strengthening the growth of our subcommittees to their full potential as we continue moving forward. But much like the example above, much of our work springs forward very organically. I'll say off the cuff, when we reformulated our mission and bylaws, we set up these 4 subcommittees, and these 4 subcommittees weren't necessarily set up to address the work that we're doing. In a couple ways, we kind of put the cart before the horse. And so as we move forward in the next couple of years, we'll see where these subcommittees stand. We'll see if they will maintain simply an oversight capability, or whether they will have individual projects that they will be working on. Currently, our subcommittees are not independently working on any specific projects for which I can report. However, the independent council members that sit on these committees are continuing their great work within the community. And the nature of this great work addresses interagency coordination, services to offenders, outreach, prevention, victim services, and community response. So what I'd like to do now is take a couple minutes to update you on the efforts that individuals on our Domestic Violence Council, what work they are doing. So at the District Attorney's Office where I work, through Victim Services and along with our Chief, Ron Brown, we have provided presentations to our local middle schools and high schools regarding a number of issues, regarding the legal consequences of underage sexting, which unfortunately is an issue that we are dealing with in the middle school and the high school. We also addressed bullying. We also addressed hate crime. When we addressed bullying, we were specifically asked to address transphobic and homophobic bullying within the schools, and I think that was really good. We were approached by this by Astoria Middle School. We subsequently have given presentations to Napa Middle and High School. And they said the same thing. Transphobic and homophobic bullying would be something wonderful to address. So we absolutely made sure that we were addressing that issue when speaking to the children. We also provide trainings on victim services to local, we actually just this morning provided trainings on victim services to our local and statewide parole and probation officers at their regular sex offender supervision network meeting. And I should say, and I don't have this in the PowerPoint, but we absolutely partnered with the Harbor. Hillary Levine, who is sitting with me right now, was a part of that presentation this morning, a major part of that presentation. One of our very active community partners, the Lower Columbia Q Center, is providing LGBT cultural competency trainings within the community. I believe on November 11th, we're going to be providing or they will be providing a training to DHS and foster parents, which again is going to be very useful here in our community. The Harbor, our local nonprofit domestic violence and sexual assault resource center, has been working to implement girls' circle groups, both in their office as well as at Tongue Point Job Corps. The Harbor will be providing presentations to our local middle schools and high schools regarding teen dating violence as well as safe dates. The Harbor will be partnering and is currently partnering with the Oregon Law Center to provide pro bono legal resources for domestic violence and sexual assault survivors. And on November the 1st, I'm happy to report that the Harbor will make its move to its permanent location next door to this building here at the Snow Building, which will put them very close to the courthouse, which is wonderful. Additionally, the Harbor has received $10,000 from the Randall Fund to expand teen advocacy and prevention services. The Harbor continues its collaboration with Tillamook and Columbia counties on a number of grants to expand advocacy and prevention in Clatsop County with an additional and potential $35,000 in grant funding.
Just a caveat, that's actually we are currently in the process of applying for a grant, a 3-county-wide grant, where the Harbor and Clatsop County itself would receive the $35K, but we haven't received word on that grant yet, so.
Recently, also, the Harbor has received a $20,000 grant from Providence that will assist in the funding Clatsop County's domestic violence shelter that is due to open shortly. And we have not had a domestic violence shelter in a number of years. And so we're very excited to have that up and running as a major component in providing
Ben?
services to our victims in Clatsop County.
Ben,
Yes, ma'am.
could you explain to me a little bit, what's the difference between what the Harbor is doing, what a domestic violence shelter would be? Because I guess I equated that as the same thing.
It is. So the Harbor just hasn't had a domestic violence shelter open in our county for a number of years. And so due to that grant funding and a lot of really hard work, we are about to begin to be able to offer those services again. So we will have a confidential shelter for survivors in our community again.
Okay, understand that, thank you.
Pardon me, follow up. The capacity of that shelter?
The capacity of that shelter is that it will be able to house up to 4 families at a time.
Good, thank you.
We also wanted to update the Board of County Commissioners regarding our long-standing community outreach. For a long time, this is what the Domestic Violence Council was known for, were 2 major events that we have in the community. The first is our Domestic Violence Awareness Healthy Homes 5K Walk Run, which took place here in October. Coming up here in April, we have a Sexual Assault Awareness March through Astoria. Now to highlight, in 2016 was our 5th annual Healthy Homes Run. We had partnering organizations that showed up to provide informational tables to the participants of that run. That include CASA, which is the court-appointed special advocates for foster kids, the Harbor, Choices Counseling, which provides batterers intervention treatment and service. They're a service provider for our domestic violence perpetrators, as well as a table from the Clatsop County District Attorney's Office Victim Services Unit, which is where I work. That was last year. That was in 2016. I'm absolutely pleased to say in 2017, the event was spearheaded by Felina Mincy. Felina Mincy is the volunteer coordinator for the Harbor. Just to highlight a little bit of the work that she did for our run, this is a list of the information tables that were present at our run this year. And so as you will see, she was able to bring in a lot more partnering agencies. We were able to provide a lot more information.
Oh, my goodness.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I can't say how much she's done for that event. So we're really excited to have Felina working on this. I do not know if she's going to be working on the sexual assault walk. I have a feeling she might be, and I'm very excited to see what she does with it. This was a photo from this year's 6th annual Healthy Homes Walk. The picture on the left is our Astoria High School cross-country team. It was great. We didn't even make them pose for this photo. This is a photo they wanted to pose for on their own, and so I ran through the field with my phone to make sure to capture it as well. All of the participants at the run, most of the participants of the run had signed a Hands Are Not for Hurting pledge. and they very much wanted to have a picture taken with them in front of this handwritten pledge. And again, this is a lot of the community that we're trying to reach, or is our young community. We're very lucky in the 6 years that we've done this to have such an active role from our local high school. I don't have a picture of the entire football team, but the entire football team showed up too. And again, that is huge, because that is the community that we're trying to reach, is our young people and the people that influence other people. On the right is a photo of the 3 winners that we had of the race. For the first time, we actually had winners. We had medals. Again, that is absolutely a feather in Felina Mincy's cap. If she's here, I don't think she's here.
No, she's got some sick kiddos.
If she's here, we wanted to absolutely thank her for all the work that she did on that. Now, last we had met, we had promised that we would be able to provide the Board of County Commissioners with more detailed statistics on domestic and sexual assaults here in Clatsop County. And so we wanted to make sure to be able to provide you with that. So starting with the District Attorney's Office, we had a reporting period from October 1st of 2016 that ended September 30th of 2017. This matched up with the federal grant reporting that we have to do, so it worked out really well that the meeting is where it is right now. The District Attorney's Office provided services to 1,656 individual victims within that time frame. 379 of those victims were domestic assault victims. We had 42 adult victims of sexual assault. We had 48 child victims of sexual assault, in addition to 189 victims of stalking and harassment, and 17 victims of elder abuse. Now, we were able to also pull in statistics from the Harbor, which is our local nonprofit domestic violence crisis center. And before I show you those statistics, it's good to point out that we service victims of all crime. So 1,656 is total victims that the District Attorney's Office has serviced. The Harbor specifically and only deals with domestic violence and sexual assault victims, and they see a lot of victims that we do not. The Harbor serviced 1,176 victims of domestic violence or sexual assault within that time frame. 828 of those victims were adults, 60 of those victims were teens, and 288 were children. To give you a little bit of a breakdown, 1,012 of them were women, 132 of them were men. And it's great to see this on a printout, because that really matches up with what we believe our victim demographic is. 32 had genders that were not tracked, and I don't think there's a specific reason for that, except for maybe the box wasn't checked, and I know from our office that's something that happens from time to time. I'm going to back up. So in conclusion, this is a brief presentation, and we're pretty much at the end of it. We are grateful to report to you on the work and our ongoing growth. I would like to take the time now to let you know that my reign over the Clatsop County Domestic Violence Council has come to an end. And with great excitement, I would like to tell you that I am being replaced by 2 very competent co-chairs. The first is Crystal Moody, who unfortunately is not here tonight. Crystal Moody is the lead sexual assault advocate with the Harbor. That's correct, right? Yeah. The second is Hillary Ann Levine, and she is our lead domestic violence advocate with the Harbor. I would like to take this time to introduce Hillary to you, who is present, sitting here right next to me, and ask her to introduce herself and say a little bit about herself. And at the conclusion of this, we are here to answer any other additional questions that you might have.
Hi, so I am a newer advocate with the Harbor. I've been there for about 3 months as their lead advocate. I come with a background in working with survivors in Benton and Lynn counties, and then before that in rural Tennessee. And I'm really excited to have joined their team. And Crystal Moody and I are very excited to take on the role of co-chair of the Clatsop County Domestic Violence Council. As Ben says, over the last year, the emphasis was kind of on capacity building and bringing in new members to the table. And our hope moving forward is now to really look at the way that those members can interact with each other based on the agencies they're representing, and seeing what we can do with our subcommittees and how we can move forward to collaborate together as all the services in Clatsop County. And I just wanted to let folks know, over on the table we brought some chopsticks and wristbands for the harbor, as well as some flyers if you have a place to post them in your jobs or out and about in town. We're really trying to get the word out that we're moving so that survivors know how to connect with us. So help yourself to those, please.
Well, thank you for the presentation. It's very informative and for a very valuable service you provide to the community. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments for our presenters tonight?
I just wanted to thank you and your staffs that are doing this work, and I think one of the underlying messages that I get from this is hope, that people that are in these situations, there is a way out, and that there's a whole bunch of people that are working to help them do that. And I particularly like the fact that the county is also working with the perpetrators, because they're just as trapped. So I believe that people can change, and I believe that there's hope for people, and I appreciate that. And I also was thinking this morning when I was thinking about this is that we have different grants. I like to see that you're working with young people, and you're also possibly thinking about doing a circle with boys too, not just girls. Is that something in the future?
Yes, correct. So currently, our two, and the work that we do with the youth, we like to refer to as prevention work. So that's really working with youth as they're kind of forming their understanding of what a healthy relationship looks like and what proper boundaries and behaviors are like. So we like to see that as a really hopeful thing, to say that if we do this prevention work early in a youth's life, that perhaps we'll see less numbers in the future. And currently we have 2 advocates that have been trained to do the Girls Circle programming, but we would like to send them back to do the nuanced training for Boys Circle, as well as we're looking to, in November, increase the amount of just general domestic violence and sexual assault support groups we offer at our offices at more varied times. So we're trying to kind of expand the support group and prevention parts of our agency.
And forgive me for not knowing this, but I'm assuming that a lot of the work that the juvenile department, the county juvenile department does is touches on some of these issues, the same things that you're working with, right?
Absolutely, and there is there are members of the juvenile department who are members of the DV Council who do a girls' circle as well, and they focus on middle school aged, and we're going to focus on high school. So,
Well, thank you so much for all that you do.
So I do have a follow-up question. Looking at youth who are at risk, are you focusing on those LGBTQ youth all over the county? Just reassure me, please.
absolutely. I mean, all of our prevention work and all of our presentations that go into the school and discuss healthy relationships and safe dates and those type of programs address LGBTQ relationships. And talk about them, you know, in the same way that they talk about, you know, other healthy relationships. So that is something that is very much inclusive in the trainings. It's not, you know, it's definitely addressed and talked about as, you know, a healthy thing. So, yeah. And Ben does wonderful trainings. The training that they were doing was focusing more on bullying and things like that within the school. So it's kind of a great double-edged, you know, way to kind of go about addressing those issues of those youth.
And if I could add on to that, as a board member of our local Lower Columbia Q Center, the Lower Columbia Q Center originally started through the harbor as a platform to be able to educate our youth and our population about domestic violence and sexual assault. We've moved away from that a little bit in the sense that we're not connected to the harbor as we used to be. As a board member, it is very important to me that we continue that outreach. And so when we have community youth events, we try to provide as much safe data information as we can. We absolutely try to address domestic violence and sexual assault, as well as a number of other issues. So that is one of our strong platforms with the Q Center.
Good. Thank you for protecting the most vulnerable of the vulnerable.
And Ben, just to be clear, you're stepping down from your role in this council, but you're staying in the area, still doing the work that you're...
I'm still going to be a part of the council. I will no longer be the chair of the council.
Okay.
So
All
I
right.
still will be involved.
I would hate to lose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, again, thank you so much for the presentation tonight.
Thank you guys so much for the time.
Good evening. Our next presentation tonight is a report on the Nehalem River State Scenic Waterways Program.
I was going to say, and I hope Alex is here to give that presentation.
Yes. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you for coming tonight, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you for your interest in the Scenic Waterway Program. Okay. I'm Alex Phillips. I'm the Bikeways and Waterways Coordinator from State Parks and Recreation Department. Am I too close to this mic?
You're perfect.
You're
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay. And I'll let my coworker introduce himself as well.
I'm Trevor Taylor. I'm the Stewardship Section Manager for Oregon State Parks.
So my plan for this presentation this evening is to talk a tiny bit about the history of the Scenic Waterway Program, move into what the program is, and then talk specifically about the study. I passed out earlier a map of the study area and some other information. So way back in 1970, voters actually established the Scenic Waterway Program. And at that time, it was established under state statute. It also had it required state parks to periodically study rivers for inclusion in the program, which is why State Parks is here tonight talking about it. And then the program grew quite a bit, both through ballot initiative and other legislative movements to add quite a bit. And the last large chunk was added in 1988. And then there's a break. And then in 2016, there was a study that went forward, and 2 more rivers were added to the program. So this is how many river segments, most of them are actually large river segments in Oregon that are designated state scenic waterways. And what the program does is, within a quarter mile of the banks, there's some protections for the scenic beauty. And you'll see on your map that kind of worm-like thing along, that is that quarter mile corridor. So the program does not say anything or have anything to do with outside of that quarter mile corridor. It is just that quarter mile on either side. And it's about having current development blending, or new development blending in with what's already there. What the program does not do, it does not restrict or in any way change existing water rights. It does not allow public use of private land, and it doesn't require removal of existing development. When something is in a scenic waterway, this is one, it's already been designated as a scenic waterway. There are some protections. So for some activities, the landowner would file a notice of intent with state parks. And if there's no visual impact, then it moves ahead. If there is visual impact, OPRD, state parks will work with the landowner in a collaborative effort to minimize or mitigate the effect on the waterway. The way I like to look at this is not so much from the landowner